Hello, everyone. Welcome to After Dark. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a long time since we've done one of these, so long that I'm kind of amazed that we were actually able to put it together. Hopefully everything's working fine. We do have someone in the waiting room. We'll be letting them in a minute, as 𝐶𝐸𝐵 is obviously also here and bigger than life as always. For those of you who haven't been to an After Dark, it's an open hang. We have people who can just join us. You can just join by audio or join by audio and video if you would like. We have also usually have a call-in number, 1-800 number if you want to call in. I figured that was just a little more trouble than it's worth, but I do feel like it's kind of a 1-800 hotline, you know. Hi, I'm a Kamala voter, and you know, I was going to end up being one of those. So I have a number of things that I want to say, but we also, you know, want to hear what you guys have to say. I'm going to be in the live chat, keeping an eye a bit more than usual, and of course, 𝐶𝐸𝐵 is here. 𝐶𝐸𝐵, how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. Got my load delivered and kicking back and resting and just absorbing the ambiance that is social media right now.
Yeah, I think it's going to take everybody some time. I saw Titan in the live chat pointed out that I saw Titan had pointed out that everyone needs to, you know, take the weekend, absorb. I think there's obviously a good deal of bad news. I think there's hidden, not good news, but at least mitigation to that bad news that I think we're going to talk about. And it's, you know, it's always the course of human history is always 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And we've had some good steps forward, and I think this was our time for a step back. So what I'm going to do now is we've got Matt in the waiting room, and so we're going to bring Matt in right now, and anyone else who wants to join, the link is in the description and pinned to the top, so we should have Matt here with us. So Matt, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Going pretty good. How you doing?
Everything's working.
I know, I was shocked too.
I am not. Hey, there we go. Oh, okay. So this is not actually my name, and it won't let me change it. But I am Daedalus Media of Two Guys Talking History. As soon as I figure out how to change that.
Oh, hey, you're that guy on the internet that talks about his. I saw you.
Yes. It was a long night, wasn't it?
Yeah. How do I spell Daedalus?
DEADALUS Media.
There we go. Sorry, I hope I wasn't. I figured you should be able to write your own name, so I don't know how or why that isn't being. Let me hold on a sec. Let me change this here so that everybody can rename themselves. So we do have, I think, 𝐍𝐢𝐜𝐴 is in the. In the lobby, but I will give him a minute if he wants to rename himself. Make sure that everybody can do that, just so that they can, you know, keep their privacy, and then we'll let him in. Anyways, yeah, Two Guys Talking History. I've been there. I've watched how. So somebody also mentioned that this is a little bit like having a hangover. You know, we're all you know, recovering from this. What are your thoughts?
You know, I don't think it was as bad as my 2016 post-morning Trump win. I had this nasty pit in my stomach, and it's not like things are good, right? But it wasn't as bad the second time kind of feeling, I think, for what that's worth.
That's a really good point. It wasn't as bad, and I don't honestly know why. And any thought? I mean, is it because? I mean, presumably he's going to be worse this time because he's hitting the ground running. He's got 2025. Everybody knows what he's capable of. I mean, I would assume that I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I don't think I'm saying anything anyone here doesn't know. So presumably the fear and dread would be worse. But I think you're right; it isn't.
Well, I think this time it wasn't that it's better. Like Trump's going to be better. That's not going to be the case. It's going to be awful. No one I think around us is going to be the bearer of good news for a little while. The thing I though is like I don't know about you, but I was kind of mentally preparing for this outcome in a way that I wasn't the last time.
I think that's true. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Knew at a minimum that it was a possibility in a way that last time I really did not know.
Yeah, I was just about to point that out. It's like last time it was like, oh, he doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell of doing this, and the shock of, oh my God, he did. This time going into it, it's like, well, we knew he has before, so
yeah, it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think for this one, I think part of it for me already is that obviously I was sad and I took my time to cry and the whole deal. But now I got angry, and what really made me angry is one, obviously him getting elected. But when I looked at the results and I saw that at least as of this morning, and I'm sure it's changed somewhat, but he had around the same number of votes that he had in 2020, but she was way behind where Biden had been at the same point. She was 15 million votes short, and that told me, well, yes, part of it is he did pick up, some like I think he got someone told me he got plus 11 on the new voters, which is, disappointing, but it, basically tells me that, our side of the fence didn't show up. And I'm like, and I'm at least as pissed at them because I'm like, what he was, what he was going to do. But I'm so tired of this, they're not exciting enough. I'm not inspired enough. I'm like, the guy's a fucking, authoritarian. He's already said he wants to be dictator for a day. He's already, gotten the Supreme Court to say that he's got almost no limits. When people say, oh, well, she didn't explain her plan well enough. Like, she had a plan. He had the concept of a plan, and that's all he fucking needed to show up. And I'm like, I'm so sick and tired of the double standard, both from the media and for liberal, centrist, liberal, progressive, and leftist voters. Like, what the hell's wrong with us? I mean, I'm very motivated to not have an authoritarian running the goddamn country. I don't need to be. It's nice when you're moved by the person, but I never need that. That's gravy if I get it.
And I think I had your cameras off, so those of you who want to turn your cameras on, you should be able to now. And next time I'll do it so that there's like more of a stage view and everyone can see everybody. But that notwithstanding, the other thing is he did much better with, my understanding is he did much better with Latinos and with blacks, especially black males, which is extraordinarily disappointing. And I remember Obama going and saying, look, if the reason you're not going to vote for her is because she's a woman, you really have to examine yourself. And, and it just basically says to me that this country is not ready for a female president because,
well, I mean, and again, the more telling thing to me is he did better percentage wise, but again, you have to look deeper. The fact is that there were fewer black voters. And that's, so, basically he got a bigger percentage. But did he get really that many more actual black voters? And the question, and that's not, it doesn't appear, at least when I last looked at the numbers, it didn't appear to really be the case. But just that she just had people that didn't show up for her.
Yeah, Ken, your audio there, you're playing the stream, so you're going to have to, I'm going to mute you, Ken, and let's see. Actually, you guys may not be able to unmute yourself, so for now, let me make sure that you can unmute yourself once you've got, let's see. I don't know. It's been a long time since we've done this. Well, I've got you muted. I'll unmute you in a second if you can't. Oh,
Not only has it been a long time since we've done this, we're also doing it on an entirely different system.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
For those of you who are around for the whole, and oh my God, I mean, it's great. It's more reliable. The audio is coming through better, but it's our first. Oh wow, this is our first After Dark in almost 2 or 3 years. We just got out of it. People weren't as interested. So, but hey, if people are interested and if people want to have these hangs, we want to do them. So come and join us. Yeah.
I just took a look at the numbers again. At least at the current count, he's still at 72,191,000, and she's at 67,410,000. So again, he's almost identical to what he had last time for total votes. So whatever he did pick up in maybe black and Hispanic votes, he lost in white Republicans that, at least some of them decided not to vote for him. But, Biden had 81 million, which means, there's 14 million people that was like, and that's infuriating.
People are getting mad at me because I voted for Chase Oliver, so.
Yeah, he's pretty close to what he got last time. The Democrats is just way, way down the turnout, which always hurts Democrats every time. It was about 8:00 my time, Mountain Time last night when I was like, oh, we're done. This is not happening. It's and then it just was a slow, agonizing thing for the rest of the night, watching the count come in, and just it was not changing. It was just a very long night overall, I feel like.
And the thing is, for the people who again, people that would have nominally voted for, basically people who voted for Biden and didn't come out for Harris, what did it take? I mean, he spent the last 2 weeks on almost no policy issues whatsoever. It was all his grievance stuff. So if you think, okay, she didn't say it enough somehow, and he didn't say anything. He said gobbledygook.
I think one of the bigger problems is that elections are usually decided on the margins, and the people who want to see things happen don't necessarily care about the how. They just care about the statement of intent. And Trump has always been very good at saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. He's never very good on the details, like you said, the conception of a plan line, but never really about that doesn't necessarily matter to people, because there's a certain set of people like this audience that are politically engaged, and then there are the people who come in for the last 4 or 5 weeks, listen for a little bit, and make a decision on what they hear. And if they like what they hear, they'll vote for it, which I think is a kind of a blessing in disguise, because I know a lot of people are upset. But overall, I think if you can craft a message that people want to hear, instead of necessarily drilling down on policy, that you can take those voters that have voted for Trump in the past and get them to vote for someone else.
Yeah, I suppose, but obviously we were not successful at that. The only good thing is, well, at least as it stands now, he's term limited. As long as, and although since we know the Supreme Court's not really keen on the Constitution, so who knows? Who the fuck knows? But yeah, the funny thing about it is, I just came up from the NerdTube stream, and we ran out of time, so I ended up talking about it off camera. But one of the things that Trump has openly talked about is killing the CHIPS Act. And for anyone who doesn't know what the CHIPS Act is, the CHIPS Act was basically a series of grants and tax credits and tax breaks for companies that manufacture computer chips to build them here, to build fabrication sites here in the United States. Because one of the big problems we had during COVID, we had a chip shortage, and it was not just the problem of the chip shortage, but since everything was coming out of Taiwan and mainland China, so that was a problem. But then on top of it, we had the shipping shortage, where basically, there were, I don't know how many hundreds of cargo ships with shipping containers that couldn't be offloaded because they couldn't, it wasn't safe to have people there. So my industry, I'm on automation and controls. It took for example, I gave an example of these guys, one part that we ordered for a customer. We ordered it in November of 2021, and we didn't get it until March of 2023. That's how bad the backlog was. So having chip manufacturer here in the States one, it's good for the economy, but two, it also means that we're not, even if we had a shortage, we wouldn't be dependent, we wouldn't also be held up by the shipping problems. And of course, it's extra capacity. It's more ability to make these chips. And the irony of it is most of the chip fabs that have been built so far are in red states: North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, and Tennessee. Virginia also, which is more of a blue state, but it's mostly going to red states. So if he kills it, he's actually hurting his own base. But these people are so not understanding the details. They just say, oh, because basically it's about killing something that Biden did. They don't care or understand what it is. They just want to get rid of it, even though they've been the primary benefits of it.
I mean, yeah, that was what Trump did the first time when he killed, for example, the Iran deal. It's also, I think, notable that the CHIPS Act is also about national security. It's about moving manufacturing away from a vulnerable center in Taiwan and China and putting it here where it can be not necessarily affected if China decides to invade Taiwan.
Right. Plus the fact that, if chips that are built in China proper, who knows? I mean, they could be it is possible for espionage to happen, right? So that's another aspect, national security aspect of it as well. I mean, he's so onto, got to fight China. Well, but killing the CHIPS Act helps China.
Absolutely.
I was asked this last night, and Commander McMillan has joined us, and he may have some insight into this. I mean, I think the question that was asked in our hang that we had after we had like a half, not a half hour, sorry, 90-minute to 2 hour hang after the show, just for everybody to decompress. That was Carpazian's idea. I think it was a very wise idea. There was no way we were going to get this set up and really do this last night. It was difficult for everyone. But he'd asked, okay, how is this going to affect Ukraine? How is this going to affect the Middle East? And how is this going to affect Taiwan? Which, A, was annoying that he struck me with a suitor question because I'm the only one on In Time Permitted to ask questions in 3 parts. But B, was in fact a complicated question. But for my end, I don't think it actually affects Taiwan much at all because I don't think Taiwan has the sufficient ability to defend itself such that the only thing China can really do is crush Taiwan, and I don't think they want to do that. So, as long as Taiwan is credibly, at least to the Chinese people, not the Chinese government, but to the Chinese people, credibly has not seceded, there's no need to crush Taiwan, and they're not going to do it. But I think that's their option. I don't think there's a middle ground for them. So I don't think this is actually going to affect Taiwan unless Trump does something stupid and takes a phone call from the Taiwanese president again. But short of that, anyways, Commander McMillan, any thoughts from you?
Can you hear me, first off?
No, we can't hear you at all. I have no idea what you're... No, I don't screw with him a little bit. Okay, fine.
Good one. I think to answer that 3-part question, 1, Ukraine, we already know he's in debt to a bunch of Russian oligarchs to ridiculous sums. He's buddy-buddy with Putin. It's a better than even chance that the FSB has a whole, file drawer full of compromise on the guy. Yeah, I think as soon as he's sworn in, all aid to Taiwan, or excuse me, all aid to Ukraine is going to get cut.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be up to the EU to step up to the plate to take over the slack. And I don't know if they will, given the fact that the EU, until fairly recently, has always shown that they're willing to follow but not lead on things. So,
yeah.
We'll see how that plays out. The second part of the question, which was the Middle East, I think when you consider the fact that they Kushner went over as personal representative and they moved the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, tells you what you need to know. He has, we know, close friendship relationship with Bibi. Yeah, I think he's going to give Netanyahu the equivalent of carte blanche deal with the Arabs how he likes.
He's actually already announced as of today that I think it specifically was, we will give Israel the tools they need to win their war on terror. That was his press release today.
Yeah,
That's a nice vague term.
It is. It's a very nice vague term. It worked out really well for us for 20 years.
Yeah. So, yeah, and the thing that flabbergasts me is, I think it's Dearborn, Michigan, which has the highest concentration of Muslims living in America, overwhelmingly voted in favor of Trump because they were pissed at Biden because he couldn't do anything to squash the Israeli attacks in the Gaza and such. Well, they're about to find out what a fucking stupid idea that was.
yeah.
They also-
leopards eating people's faces party.
Yep.
They also voted overwhelmingly for Jill Stein as well.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, and I know people that are like progressives and leftists that were the same way. They're like, "Oh, Gaza." I'm like, how are you going to save the Palestinians if you can't save yourself? And a lot of them didn't want to accept the idea that it would get worse. Like, well, how could it get any worse? Or I had one person tell me basically that it didn't matter, and I'm like, what incredible mountain of privilege you live on here in the United States, and no one's dropping bombs on you, that you can say it doesn't matter. It's like, I want you to go personally apologize to all the families who will have deaths that wouldn't have if
When the black helicopters come for you, it will suddenly matter.
Oh, yeah. And I've told a lot of people this. I remember this guy I used to be friends with who's a YouTuber, and he's a gay man, and he started going down the Trump wing, and I'm like, dude, you're going to be up against the wall with the rest of us. So I don't know what you're doing.
I'll say this though: I think before he moves on any of those in the left, he's going to move on people within his own party. Because, like as with Hitler and Rome and the SA, they pose the greatest threat to him. So I would expect in fairly short order, even quite likely before he's sworn in, those people are going to suddenly find themselves in very deep water.
Yeah, I hope we can all be friends, even if we get sent to different concentration camps.
Wouldn't that be nice? Taiwan is a weird one because his relationship with China has always been mixed, waffly. I don't know what you call it. It's hard to pin him down on anything. And I would suspect that is likely to be something that he's going to leave alone unless the Chinese do something really stupid or he's offered a massive bribe. And I fall back on my original thing that I've said many times in time, that I still don't see China ever really moving against Taiwan because it is too great an asset for them as a breakaway state to use to rally their own people behind the central government.
Right.
Than is to take a place which, A, you're destroying one of your biggest trade partners. B, those are the people that own many of the businesses in the mainland. So that shuts all those businesses. It's economic suicide in some ways, and they're already having economic problems. Why make it worse?
Right.
So
plus having an open war with the United States.
Yeah.
We're like the number one customer, right?
Yeah. Well, even if it isn't, if the U.S. stands aside, I still think other countries in the Pacific Rim are going to side with the Taiwanese because the PRC that's been turned loose as the bull in the china shop. God knows which one of them is going to be the next meal on the platter.
Yeah. I'm figuring Japan, the Philippines, Australia.
They're already heavily involved in harassing the Philippines.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
The
Filipinos have a lot of it's in their interest to oppose China if they go after Taiwan.
So there's a good consensus within the states within that region that would rise up to stop any move by the Chinese made against Taiwan, I would think.
And Japan is busy building a whole bunch of ships with some historically alarming names. So,
Just a tad.
it's like you decided to name that what?
Well, I just love that because their constitution, they're not allowed to build aircraft carriers on paper, so they have very, very large helicopter destroyers.
And having worked with the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force on numerous occasions, let me tell you, they are indeed a very well-trained, very motivated, very competent organization, and
right.
They have top-line equipment too, so they're nothing to sniff at.
Well, that's why when people have done the whole, China has more, hull count than we do, even though that's counting like corvettes and patrol craft. But I'm like, well, it's not just us and China. It's, Japan. It's probably South Korea. It's Australia. It's the Philippines. Probably some other actors that I haven't thought of. So it's not just, it's not just 1-to-1.
Yeah, the other side of that equation is that the Chinese, I won't say have never been, but when they were, it was literally ages ago, a naval power. They don't have a naval tradition. They're still learning how to do things at sea. Yeah, they have a couple carriers, but they really don't know how to use them. They've had difficulties with that.
They're 91 years behind us in carrier ops?
At least. But the other one, the standing joke was that you have to know Chinese communist history to get the joke, but Mao had a thing called the Long March, where they fled into the inland areas to get away from the Japanese, the KMT during the pre-Civil War stage. The joke we had was, if China ever decides to invade Taiwan, it will be the big swim. Because they literally, at the time, they had no amphibious craft at all. They have a few now, but just a few. And the plan for doing the invasion was basically, it was like using car ferries and fishing boats to get their troops over. And it was like, you don't need much in the way of a slingshot to sink matches.
Well, the other thing too,
let me interrupt real quick, just because I've been shamed into this. Finally, we got a super chat early on, and you guys have been having a great conversation. And I didn't want to interrupt, but I'm a whore when it comes to getting paid. So, $1.99 super chat. Darian Vaughn, Nick Play, Microsoft Tone, LOL, love you, bud. Thank you very much for that super chat. And sorry for it taking so long. He was calling me out in the live chat. I was like, it's a good conversation. You can't. So, but I there you go. It's done. And I do apologize. You were saying, Joe.
Yeah. Well, saying like one of the things too, you said about how they don't really have the tradition, people were making a big deal about the fact that they have their third carrier now and they're building their fourth. I'm like, well, the first carrier is one of the old Russian, probably classified as a helicopter cruiser, Kiev class, which is built in the 70s, and wasn't very good back then. And then the second one is one of the Kuznetsov class carriers that were built in the 80s.
That needs a tugboat to be able to move around.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Exactly. This is the carrier that the Russians have had in dry dock for the last 13 years because they keep having accidents.
I mean, if there were ever a ship that had the sad sack history to it, it's that one. It's like every other month it would catch fire and people would die in floodings. And it's just like, this is a great way to learn how to do carry-offs, guys.
Exactly.
Actually, I think Russia's Kuznetsov is retired now.
Well, it's technically not, but it's in dry dock. It had an accident a few years back where a crane fell on it.
Yeah,
and yes, I don't think they're getting it out of. I don't think they're getting out of dry dock anymore.
No, it's effectively dead. They just haven't put the nail in the coffin, But
it's an embarrassment to admit that it was a failure. So they aren't going to decommission until you can do so without making yourself look like, we were complete failures.
But and even the one that they built that's larger, and I think it's about 65,000 ton.
Yeah.
So it's about the same size as the British carrier, but they still haven't worked out their air wing yet,
No.
and that's going to take what, a decade?
At least.
So
Yeah.
if
And
yeah, please.
it takes a lot of money to operate a carrier at sea, let's be honest. And right now, which country is having trouble refurbishing Cold War era tanks to keep its troops at the front, supplied with armored vehicles? Let me think for a second. Certainly are.
Yeah. I'm trying to think here. Oh, I had a question. I forgot it.
Well, so if you're Zelensky, and you've woken up to this news, what do you do now?
You have to be shit yourself. I mean,
Okay, after you clean your pants out, then what do you do?
yeah.
I think that the first thing they're going to have to accept that Eastern Ukraine is probably gone,
Yeah.
and they're going to have to make a deal to stem the bleeding. We do two guys. We usually do a monthly Ukraine update. We haven't done it in a while because the story is basically the same for the last 3 or so months. Is Russia is slowly gaining ground. This situation is unlikely to improve, and now basically has a hard time limit to it, where they can basically guarantee that new aid is not going to be as forthcoming. It might be time to negotiate while the getting's good.
Well, see, one thing I'm hoping that Biden administration will do while they have, between now and the 20th of January, is there's a lot of money that's been allocated, but not, the stuff hasn't been shipped, hasn't been, provided.
Yeah, only about 10% of that 60 billion ever got sent.
Yeah.
So
So
hopes that if Biden and his team are all honorable, they will do their level best.
we can't really hear you.
I'm sorry. You hear me now?
It's a bit better, yeah.
Sort of.
You were saying that if he's honorable, my understanding, you said that if he's honorable, that he will do his level best too, and I think that was.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that there's a good chance he can get at least a significant amount of stuff, maybe not all the remaining 60 billion's worth, but a significant amount.
Yeah.
And I suspect that a lot of the hierarchy in the Pentagon will support that because they know what's about to happen.
Mm.
So possibly, but at the same time, I also suspect that the administration is both going to be demoralized and scrambling to figure out how to salvage something out of the mess.
Mm.
So they could be distracted to the point of not being able to do much.
Do you have a sense why we haven't sent them, like, just saying, for example, like the M1 tank? We sent them 31, and we have literally a couple thousand in depots that are just chilling.
Yeah, we don't even have to send A2s. We could send them just straight M1s or M1As. And
exactly.
it's still better than the T-72s, which are what the Ukrainians are primarily relying on for armored vehicles.
Right. We could send them 200, 300, 400 and not miss it.
Yeah, and at the same time, Bradleys, the Ukrainians adore the Bradley. I mean, you remember in the early phases, it was St. Javelin. It's almost St. Bradley now.
Mm.
So yeah, getting them as many of those as we could do.
The other thing too, it seems to be, I remember watching, I forget whose channel it was a few months back, but it seems like they're low on tow missiles for the Bradleys, and I'm like, we've been making those for 50 years, 60 years. Like, can't we?
Yeah, I think the first came out in the early 70s, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so it's like 50 years. Like, I gotta think we got a bunch of them that are probably due for destruction because they're so old, and you can just throw those over.
Sure. Yeah, and I've never understood why there wasn't any sense of urgency to get that stuff to the Ukrainians. There certainly is now. And I mean, this is me speaking from my own myopic focus on international affairs, but I would say that failure of the outgoing Biden administration to do their level best to make that happen shows that they never really cared about the fate of Ukraine from the start.
I also think there is a not insignificant portion of the oxygen that got sucked out of the room after October 7th towards Israel as well that has happened. The aid that has been sent towards Israel to be that guy, I'm going to be that guy, should have been sent to Ukraine.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing, too, what I'm curious of is it seems like both the U.S. and the various European allies, it seems that we've been so petrified of trying to escalate to the point where Russia would use nukes. And I'm like, so we've crossed almost all the lines now. It's clearly not happening. Like, it never was going to happen. I mean, you know, if the Russians want to take Ukraine, they can't nuke it into oblivion. And attacking, you know, and nuking NATO countries wouldn't help them in any way.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I think the thing is, and I've talked about this. Nuclear weapons are much more useful in the abstract than they are in being actually used.
Right.
Yeah.
They're very useful to try to blackmail someone to not do a thing. And that's very effective if you have leadership that's not willing to go toe-to-toe with Russia. And that has largely been the case. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Ukrainian invasion popped off when it did in 2022, so shortly after Biden got a black eye with the evacuation in Afghanistan.
Right.
I don't think that's a coincidence. And I really think that the reaction to the evacuation in Afghanistan put Biden in a very reactive crouch, foreign policy-wise, that he never got out of.
Yeah. I mean, I always felt like, because another thing, we knew it was coming, and I always felt like, hey, if we moved in set up a no-fly zone or move some air assets into Ukraine or some ground assets into Ukraine and said, don't or else, I don't think the invasion happens.
I think you're absolutely correct. And I think one of the biggest flaws of Biden's approach was to say, we're not going to do the thing. When he said, we're not going to assist Ukraine, I would have,
We're not going to honor the Budapest Accords.
Right.
Yeah, even if I had no intention of doing that, I still wouldn't have said it. I still would have left the option open so that Putin has to sit there and think for at least a second.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at least in the foreign policy aspect, I think that's Biden's biggest mistake. Because I really think that,
yeah, please.
No, if we had committed assets, because basically, if once we had assets in country, if they attacked and hit and killed our units, then we could say, hey, you know, invoke Article 5.
I don't necessarily think you'd have to go that far. I think if, for example, that early offensive around Kyiv, if that had been decisively like a decisive loss instead of just stopping Russia, but you actually took out significant portions of that force, I think that changes the whole dynamic for them.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah, but at that point, we didn't know just how bad the army was. We were starting to learn it, but at that point, we didn't realize that if we did massive damage to what had been stopped, and that huge column, the whole 9 yards, if we just eliminated all of that quickly, they wouldn't be able to recover. There was no way to know that at the time.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that gets me, though, is like, before it happened, and I remember I left comments to this effect in a bunch of places. I was looking at the size of the Ukrainian ground forces. It was about 169,000. I looked at what the Russians had a raid to 𝐶𝐚𝐬, which was about 220,000. And I'm like, that's not enough to take and hold. One, it's not even enough to take all the ground, let enough, hold it. But it sure as hell isn't enough to hold all that ground. To me, the big thing was going to be the air assets, because that was the one big advantage that the Russians had over the Ukrainians was their air assets. But
which
they've never
goes to my argument that what should have been done was simply declare a no-fly zone over Ukraine. You don't have to send in troops per se. You're not violating Russia's borders. You're just saying, yeah, we see any airplanes flying over this place, we don't care whose they are, down they go.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And if you blunt their air advantage, 220 versus 169 is not a winning formula. Against 169, you want what, 400, 450? It seems kind of strange. And obviously Russia has since added more, but they're taking losses at like such an egregious rate, and even if Russia does end up holding on to some territory, right? They've lost, because if their goal was to try to have a buffer against Ukraine, against NATO, well, they basically doubled the border against NATO, and they've basically shown that their force is a joke, that is not some modern military force to be feared, and they've lost so much in the way of assets. And I've heard people try to say that they've got all this stockpile. I'm like, at least all the ones that are outdoors that are visible, most of those outdoor stockpiles are empty now. So they've pulled in, and when I heard people say about their production rate, they're not producing new tanks. They're refurbishing old ones and getting them out on the battlefield. They can't do that forever. They're basically cannibalizing a bunch of them to make a few of them run.
Well, the principal thing that Russia has been employing, particularly, is loitering munitions, the Shahed drones, which they have got, which are cheap, which is their principal virtue. The other half of it is like the air war never really changed. It kind of metastasized in exactly the same way that the ground war did. Ukrainian planes don't go past a certain point for fear of getting shot down, and vice versa for the Russians. And like there's been some changes to that. Like they got surprised a couple times by the Patriots, or the Russians did. But by and large, that still works out really well for Russia, because they have a stockpile of bombers that have this long range capability, and they have more modern fighters with longer range weapons. They can launch these attacks from their territory safely. And that's really what's been affecting a lot of Ukrainians, the same way it did last winter. This relentless barrage, night after night after night, of missiles and drones.
Well, the thing that surprises me is how they've adapted surface-to-air missiles to use in a bombardment role.
Can barely hear you.
Try again. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
A little bit better.
Okay. The thing that surprises me is how they've been using so many of their surface-to-air missiles, particularly the advanced ones like the S-300 and the S-400, as bombardment missiles.
Yeah.
Which, if you think about it, suggests that their air defense system must be fairly compromised because of shortness of munitions.
Right.
Let me interrupt
Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm gonna. Please don't forget your question you're about to ask, and then I'm gonna. At some point, I've got a couple of questions, but they're not pressing. But we did get another super chat, 199 from Darren Vaughn again. So it has been commented that for some reason, Xandering sounds like an elf when he talks. I don't know if it's his hardware.
Well,
I don't know what it is.
I think the name sounds like a Tolkien elf name.
Oh, and it may they actually said he sounded like one too. So is Xandering? The question is Xandering a high elf or a wood elf? And we now have a poll going. Nomadic elf. Titan said libertarian elf. Somebody who is a troll of some kind said a mimic pretending to be an elf. So we have a lot. So I don't know who would have said something that rude, but. So if Xandering wants to clarify that, and I'd like to point out to anyone who is listening right now,
elf on a shelf.
The elf on a shelf.
We have a winner.
Thank you for the super chat. We really do appreciate it. That does help a lot. And anyone here who could hit like, subscribe, share, and if you want to join and say hi to, and I'll be honest, I could say say hi to me. Nobody cares. Daedalus and Joe probably, people are going to say, but it's Commander that everyone's going to like. Oh, I can talk to Commander. So link is up at the top if anybody wants to join. And somebody had asked this earlier. Yes, I did send a link to Dawson. He hasn't shown up. You can tell because the set is not on fire. but we'll see. He is absolutely welcome. He may have also. He's like, when I get home, I'll do it. Well, that's a time span of greater than about 30 seconds, and that's about as long as his short-term memory goes. So I'll hit him up and see if he wants to join us.
Well,
But please continue.
It is always awesome having the commander around, because here's the thing. Like, okay, most of us, I don't know about Daedalus. Were you ever in the military?
It's a long story, but no.
Okay, I was never in the military. I mean, I've studied stuff and followed stuff, but but even there, I've pointed out that someone who's just, say, like a Marine or Army person who's a grunt, that doesn't make you know anything about international politics and military strategy and stuff like that. You might know tactics, but you're not going to necessarily know strategy. But commander level, you study all that shit.
Yeah. To answer the story longer, so when I was 18, I tried to join ROTC. I went and did the medical thing. I got diagnosed with kidney disease. Did ROTC for 3 years for the Army, and then I became a military historian. It was fun. Except it wasn't really, but that's beside the point.
I almost left engineering school to become a military historian. Almost.
So yeah. So like I have tangential experience, I guess is the best way of putting it. But for the grace of God go I. So first of all, to answer Titan, a libertarian elf is just a dark elf. Second of all,
that's apt.
Second of all, unless I'm very much mistaken, most surface-to-air missiles have a ground attack capability. You just don't want to necessarily use them as such because they just have very small payloads. I think it works very well for the Russians to use S-300s in that capacity because they're not attacking military targets. They're trying to hit apartment buildings.
And that brings up a point too, that what I've seen. They always talk about politics making strange bedfellows. I've seen this weird, not really alliance because they're not friendly, but coalition, I guess, of far right and far left who are basically supporting Russia. Far right just because they recognize them as a right wing autocracy, which they're all about, and then the far left, who somehow seems to still believe that Russia is like the continuation of socialist Soviet Russia, Soviet Union, and that somehow they're leftist, but they're not leftist, and I'm not even sure they ever really truly were before. And I'm like, no, you're supporting a right-wing imperialist government. Why are you doing that?
I think it's more along the lines of America bad. Those are the America bad people, instead of being like genuinely like, I think this is a continuation of the Soviet Union. Yeah. It's an ideological capture.
But yeah, I know what you're saying though. Yeah, that's definitely an aspect of it, and it's weird because their attitude seems to be, well, America bad, Russia oppose America, therefore Russia good. And no, two sides in it. I don't think America bad, but we've done some things that are messed up. But even if you want to take the position America bad, that doesn't make the Russians good by it doesn't. They don't cancel each other out. You can have both sides of conflict that are wrong.
Yeah. False.
No, absolutely.
False choice. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can't hear you, Commander. We got nothing. We got no audio from you now.
Not my fault.
Commander McMillan's smoke signals.
Or can he do semaphore? I mean, if he can do, if anyone can read it, I can't read it, but get him the flags. Let's see.
No, it's the same.
No, semaphore is not allowed.
It's the same every time before I start a stream with Commander. I'm like, it's a 50% chance we can hear him properly this time.
All this lamp.
Yeah, no, the audio is definitely not coming in. I can tell that from here, so I get to blame Commander. So if you want to try, nope, he's going to bail and hopefully come back. But I'll bet you he reboots. We'll see. Yeah, that's what I used to do, computer technical support, and I always hated doing the remote stuff. And once you got so that you could at least remote into somebody's system pretty easily, it made it a lot easier. But I'm like, you know what? Hit reboot. If it doesn't work, don't call me. I don't care that I will never do tech support ever again.
When in doubt, reboot.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, we got him coming back
I
in.
did that for a few. I did that job for a few months. It sucked.
Yeah, it
I
does.
hate when I
It
get an
does.
ID10T error.
All right, Commander, sound check.
Now,
Yay!
Yes, sir.
Everybody should have remained quiet and said,
No,
Are
I'm
you
not.
there,
I'm not. I know because
move
I
your
don't want
lips
him.
silently.
Yeah, I don't want him to. It's fun to joke about, but I only joke about it when I know I can before they start hitting buttons, because it's like you can joke about it like, oh well, let me hit this button. It's like they screw it up. So I'm just like, no, he's in. We can hear him. I ain't joking. I'm not going to mess
Somebody
with
else
it.
probably noticed this already, but I was just looking at Sandring's name, and it's like Sandring. It looks like the password you get on the side of a router.
Yeah.
There'd be at least 4 special characters there and at least 2 numbers.
That's
but
right.
yes.
That's right.
There's a meme I love that's like when the
Say
Wi-Fi
it's not
goes.
one Sandring.
There's a meme I love. It shows like a router, and it says, "Okay, the Wi-Fi is out. You know what my family thinks I do." And you see Yoda zapping the router. It says, "What I really do is just unplug and plug the thing right back in." And it's just like
You got to count to 10 so you feel like you've done something.
yeah. This is just, and I don't know. Part of me is like, you tell them that's all you did, and they don't believe you, and it's like, is it unethical to take credit for shit? Where it's just like, you know what? If you don't want to believe me when I tell you this is all I did, fine. Oh shit! All right, well you're back, Commander, and I think Joe was asking you a question, if I remember correctly, but I don't know.
Yeah, I forget.
Yeah, well there you go. So
That brain cell died.
Yeah. So, well, you had said something earlier and we talked, and this is interesting because you were with us when we interviewed Brigadier General Benjamin Hodges, and
It's more than a brigadier.
when we were interviewing him, one of the things that he had said was that Biden really was committed to stopping Russia from overrunning Ukraine, but wasn't committed to Ukraine really fully defending itself, restoring its sovereign territory, or pushing Russia back. So now I think is where the rubber meets the road in that regard. Do you think that he's going to make any significant effort? He's got 2 months. He technically, I mean, he is the commander in chief. He could make some significant military orders for 30 days before Congress would have to approve them, or would have to declare war, I believe.
George H.W. Bush did it in Somalia, right? Just before leaving office.
Yeah.
There you go, Clinton. You inherited this.
Yeah. So what do you think is the likelihood of that?
I think, as I said before, I think the administration is going to be very busy formulating plans for how to recover from last night's defeat, and whether they have the time and energy to devote the brain power and organizational acumen to doing something like what you're talking about is open to question.
I'm hoping they decide to glue all the drawers shut before they leave.
Oh, that would be fun.
Well, they did before W got into office. They did pull all the W's from all the keyboards in the White House. Every single White House keyboard for the computer, they pulled the W key right off the thing for George W. Bush when he came in. So it's like, well, petty, but I like it.
Glue all the drawers shut, or glue random drawers shut. That's even better.
I would say the problem with gluing drawers shut is that you're assuming that an incoming Trump administration would actually be opening drawers.
Doing work.
But you have to have stuff to put in them.
Yeah, I think that might
They're
be a
just
problem
pulling stuff out of their asses.
when you consider I don't know, like reading the stuff that we got about like, oh, the presidential daily briefing can only be 4 pages long and must include pictures. And I read this sentence and I'm like, oh my God, they're being serious.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably won't need to open the drawers because Trump will just have all the documents shipped directly to Putin and have him tell Trump what to do.
I was just about to say, you got to have stuff to put in the drawers. Well, I'm sure they're just going to bring all the stuff back that they took from the White House originally.
Does Mar-a-Lago have enough bathrooms?
I can see. I'll be honest. I can see Putin calling up, or Putin actually coming over to the White House and then going to Trump. Well, Jesus, what's that smell? Did you fart? And Trump will be like, no, should I have?
Well, and you just brought up to me that one of the things. There's so many reasons why I'm unhappy with him winning, right? But one of the biggest reasons, beyond all the harm that he's going to do, is the fact that basically most of the cases against him now are just going to go away.
Yeah.
He will not face any accountability.
We're going to have 4 years to build all new cases.
The Justice Department announced this morning that they were dropping all the cases against him.
Yep. But we get 4 years to build all new cases to disappoint us again. We get to do this all over again.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
It's like Groundhog Day.
Perhaps we should be taking bets on how many more times they're going to impeach him.
Yeah. Well, if the Republicans control the House and Senate, there won't be any impeachments.
The Senate's not going to break that margin for impeachment. They're going to be, I think, 57 to
57 in the Senate.
I did a rough count. I might be wrong. Hang on.
Last I heard, it was 52.
Again. It's at 52 now, but there's still a couple races outstanding.
But I thought the races were blues.
Who are they impeaching?
Oh no, we're just trying to figure out just how much of a margin the Republicans are going to have in the Senate.
Gotcha.
The fact that they've got a margin, I mean, the predictions yesterday were that it was going to be a 50-50 split. And I remember watching when they're like, no, it's going to be 51-49. And I was like, oh, fuck, because,
Well, yeah, because I knew they were going to lose. I knew they were going to lose West Virginia. I knew they were going to lose Montana. It looked like at one point, like Nebraska was going to go to that independent guy who was going to caucus with the Democrats, which would have brought it back to 50-50, but...
Nevada's going to go red. Pennsylvania's probably going to go red. Arizona will go blue. So that's 53, 54.
AC's losing?
Yeah. And Maine is really slow. Hang on. Angus King's going to win that whenever they call it. So 55, not 57. I did bad math.
55. That's still. I thought it was 52, and I thought that was bad enough. And we have a new member. Oh my God! Kakari Kai Firehawk as a follower. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you all for your support. And I'm glad you guys joined for this hang. I think, and I'm still expecting a few people to come join us. Anybody who's in the live chat who wants to join, link is up at the top. And I thought it was a good idea. I think this is a bit of a blow for everybody, and so for all of us to sort of sit and commiserate together and talk about it. So I appreciate all of you coming. I will say, I've always been frustrated by institutional lethargy and how much. So, for example, even when the Democrats hold all three branches of government, they end up encountering institutional resistance towards their goals. One thing that I keep hoping is that institutional resistance to Trump will slow him down. It's not going to stop him. I'm fully aware it's not going to stop him. But my hope is that it's going to be more, and I'm cautiously optimistic, it's going to be more than people anticipate it being. Again, it's not going to change what's happened, but that makes me feel at least a little better. Does anybody have any thoughts on either that or anything else that they're seeing?
I think they're coming in a lot better prepared than last time. I think that it's going to be far worse. Because I'll tell you what, Trump was worse than I predicted last time. And that was when they were disorganized and grabastic. Now they've got a playbook.
I think it depends on who ends up being there. The particular thing about last time I think is worth noting is that Trump had a lot of fairly competent individuals.
To make sure he wasn't the person that drowned by the launch. Somebody just drowned there. Glad you took it up.
I got to bounce anyway, guys. But it's
All
been
right.
awesome being part of it. Thanks
Yep.
for having me.
Thank you, Joe,
Yeah.
for coming.
You guys keep doing a great show. Keep on doing it.
Are you still streaming, Joe? Do you want to tell everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, Serious Mind, SIRIUSMINED. So serious like the dog star, mind as in extracted from the earth or from deep and dark places. I actually I've been doing mostly live streams instead of regular videos, only because I'm better off the cuff than I am with prepared statements, which is weird, but I'm weird too. So I guess that explains it. So I will be making some more video. I took a little bit of a break for a few weeks, but I'll be back at it.
All right,
You guys
perfect.
have
Well,
a quick
thank you.
moment to answer one question.
Please.
How do you think the chances are of Vance invoking the 25th at some point to push Trump out?
I think it's high.
I
This
think
was his
I think-
Andrings. Yeah, I want to make sure Xander going to mute it because this was the one that he brought up last night, and he's not wrong. But yeah, please continue.
I think inside of the year we'll see something similar, like something happened.
I don't
I was
think.
thinking the same.
Trump
but
is-
I also figured
Trump
he
is
might wanna
clearly
wait
A
for 2
doddering
years.
fool.
If he waits
He might
2
want
years,
to.
he gets 10 years, not
Yep.
8 as president, and that
Yep.
would be one reason he might wait.
So Mickey Riley, he can do that. Well, he would need. He can't do it by himself. He'd need. What's the percentage of the cabinet? 50% of the cabinet.
Yeah,
To
but I
vote the
mean,
25th?
how hard is it going to be for him to convince the cabinet to back him?
And he's got 2 years to do it. And so what he does is he has to wait
Yeah.
2 years, because if he does it before 2 years, then even if he does it at 1 year and 360 days, if it's 1 year and 360 days, it counts as a full term, and he can only run for one more term, and he's a lame duck at the end. But if he waits for a single day past 2 years, then he can keep the full 2 years in office. He is now coming in as something that's unprecedented in modern history, which is he's running for re-election, but he's not a lame duck, which is an extraordinarily powerful position for him to be in. So UTV and Ham gifted 5 memberships. So thank you very much for that. We really appreciate that. Helps raise our numbers and helps encourage people to stay members, and we appreciate the support. So thank you. So I think that's now his Andring's been muted for a little while, and I'm not sure if that's because he got really offended by all the. I'm hoping it's because he got offended by all of the elf comments. But otherwise, so as Andrew,
You keep believing that.
So you had mentioned this last night. Any thoughts? And then we'll hear from everyone else.
I think that when it comes to that, we're going to have to watch and see what the kind of popularity and effects of Trump in office are. If Trump starts waning in popularity, or is, obviously losing cognitive ability, then I would expect Vance
More
to
than
wait
his
for that
current
2
level?
years. Yes, more than his current, like getting to Biden levels where it's like, oh my God, nobody can deny this anymore. He's still going to try and eke it out for that 2 years at least, and at the end of that 2 years, it's going to go, okay, how is Trump doing politically? Stick your finger out, gauge the wind. If he's doing well, he's just going to let it keep going. He won't invoke the 25th at all, because he'll just ride his popularity into his own election bid. If he's not, or something bad's happened, or his popularity is waning, growing, mounting opposition, something like that, then I think that he would go after it after that 2 years to appear to be the hero of the Republican Party, saving it from the brink of bad management of Trump, etc. To try and ride that 2 years to try and turn things around to push him into his own election
and make
bid.
him the obvious MAGA cult successor.
Yeah. The true what what is it, the true spiritual heart of the movement, not what, Trump has obviously fallen out of favor at this point. So he's veered from the path. It's like, I understood the path, and I'm going to keep on going with that path. And so that, I think it's all going to depend upon the how the population reacts to the first 2 years of Trump's presidency as to what Vance is going to do.
I think there's just as good a chance that Trump decides not to continue and pull a Sarah Palin and hand over the reins to Vance. Like, why did he start the run so early? It was primarily so he could make the argument in court that he was being targeted politically. He's accomplished those goals, basically, of getting the law off his back, so he can just sit, coast for 2 years, do absolutely nothing, hand over the thing to Vance, and skip off to Mar-a-Lago.
And pardon himself. I mean, he'll still have state issues, but yeah, on his first, he hasn't yet accomplished it, but on his first day, he can accomplish everything that he set out to do. That's a really good point.
I think his ego's too big to do that, though.
Maybe, but he doesn't seem like you listened to him last night, and he didn't really seem that interested. He was kind of scatterbrained. I was like, this is a weird speech. So maybe, I don't know. Trump is he's very clearly he's very clearly halfway out the door mentally at this point. So I think the other half of it, what's going to happen more than anything is, for the first part of the administration, you're going to see that same thing again, where he's going to be ruled by the person who's in the room at the time, able to talk into the thing, and there's probably going to be a lot more competition for that. I don't think he's going to necessarily attract as many competent people. He's going to attract much more ambitious people, and that's going to probably play against him.
Ambitious people and ideologues.
Yes.
How much infighting? Because this is the other thing and I think this tends to happen to Democrats more than conservative or liberals, but Democrats more than conservatives, for a number of reasons most of us here are probably reasonably familiar with. But how much do you have the problem of, again, when one party gets in power, all the people who have, the Democrats, I don't think are going to have a Minchin kind of problem now where people are not getting in line. The Democrats are going to tighten ranks, and anybody who gets out of line is going to be in serious trouble with every other Democrat, because they're behind the 8 ball. They have every reason to work together, and they're all going to lose if they can't pull it together. Meanwhile, anybody who's got a special interest that they've been holding on to for when Republicans get in power now want that special interest to be heard. They want to be at the top of the line. They think Trump or probably future Speaker, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to say this, Marjorie Taylor Greene, is going to sit there and say, this is what you owe me, and they have to manage all the interests, and it becomes much harder for them to operate. Is that going to be a problem here, or is the MAGA mindset get them kind of around that?
I don't think so. Ultimately, you have a lot of competing desires in the Republican Party, same as the Democrats, but you have a lot of competing desires, and this is basically a very small window that they get to enact them in. I didn't think about Marjorie Taylor Greene as Speaker, and now I'm depressed all over again.
Sorry. That hit me last night, and I was just like, oh, fuck, that's probably what's going to, it's almost certainly going to be
that's the diarrhea icing on the shit cake.
That's only half of the worst of it. My congressional district is the one that Lauren Boebert moved into.
Oh, my condolences.
So yeah,
I have something for Nick here.
Oh dear Lord, those are my
I want you to go.
Yeah.
I want you to go to the live chat and look at Chuck's last comment, and I want you to read that on air.
Yes, I will read that on air because that was a good one. I'm also going to, just so we don't forget, UTV and Ham asked about SCOTUS appointments, so we'll have to address that after we address Marjorie Taylor Greene and the question I asked, and after we read, oh God, if Vance was part Samoan, would his tribal name be Lefofa Sofa?
oh God,
No, just no. That's why I wanted you to read it. I fell off a sofa.
I fell off a sofa. Okay, I fell off a sofa. Okay, that's why you. Thanks. You know I'm dyslexic, right? Ass.
Yes, that's why I wanted you to read
That's
it.
up. You son of a. It's nice to have with friends like these. Well, with friends like these, I can stream, so I suppose there isn't a whole heck of a lot I can do. Without a co-host, I'm pretty screwed. So I guess that's why Andrew can get away with this shit. All right, thank you for that. That was yeah. I fell off a sofa. Thank you, Chuck, for explaining what has already been explained and humiliating me further. I really appreciate that. So I fell off a sofa. We were talking about not Marjorie Taylor. We were talking about competing interests when a one party holds dominance in all three branches, and these competing interests actually slowing things down because they no longer unify. They tend to fracture. So how much of an impact is that going to be? And then let's talk about SCOTUS appointments.
Well, that's when you need very strong congressional leadership. And here's the thing, Republican congressional leadership hasn't been strong in quite some time. Like even I can't believe I'm saying this, someone who's more moderate like Boehner or Paul Ryan weren't able to really corral the Republicans in Congress. You need a whip to keep the count, and you need the speaker to keep things organized. And if you put someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene, or even keeping Johnson, you're just not going to have the discipline to push through it.
Any other thoughts?
Problems.
Yep.
I was going to say, I contend that has been one of the problems for quite some time with the Democrats, is that it had become less of a party than an umbrella alliance of single issue parties. And so keeping everybody on the straight and narrow track towards getting things done is really difficult because, I don't care about climate change and doing stuff to fix that. That's not my issue. I'm into reducing the size of our military forces in Europe or whatever. And everybody's they're feuding with themselves over minutiae, losing track of the big picture. And I think you're right. Now that they're in this bad position of, having lost control essentially of everything, they may start deciding, it's time to start working together for a change. But we'll see. And I think the flip side on the Republicans is that MAGA brought in a lot of people who were purely ambitious, not necessarily devoted towards the doctrine of MAGA or progressing conservative interests. It was all about how can I get ahead? How can I milk the gravy train for my own personal bank account? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, even J.D. Vance, 6 years ago, J.D. Vance was not MAGA, and now he is. It's entirely opportunistic.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily bring about a set of people that are loyal to a program. It brings about a set of people who are loyal to whatever they can grandstand about.
It's self-interest, and not even enlightened self-interest. It's just pure self-interest.
Which is the only thing that gives me some hope in all of this, is that there's enough of them. Trump is this terrible nightmare that we look at, and we name it Trump, and it's the ideology, it's Project 2025, it's all of these things. But Vance is going to want to do his own thing, and he may get that opportunity if and when, and Trump has an odd way of being. He's so arrogant. I don't think he sees that kind of betrayal coming. He gets very, like, whenever somebody says something negative about him, he's just like, wait, where did that come from? And then he takes it very personally, of course. And so I suspect he's going to hand Vance the keys to the castle. And if Vance is patient, he may really be able to do something with it. And so the good news is,
Based on all the accounts that have come out of people who worked with, not necessarily in, but with the Trump White House, we know that he is incredibly lazy. He doesn't want to do the work. So yeah, I can see him passing the reins off to Vance to run things. And that gives Vance all the time and all the power to organize the coup when it eventually ends. And honestly, I don't think Trump would necessarily resist. I don't think he necessarily wanted to be president in the first place. I think he just liked the idea of, the popular adulation for him and the fact that he could milk the election fund to personally enrich himself, which he has done, and has done both that Lang and this time.
I think if Trump gets bereft of key support, he wouldn't know how to resist in that case either.
Yeah, for all his vaunted, I am the deal maker, he really doesn't make deals. He just threatens people until they do what he wants. And honestly, if somebody's gotten the organization behind them to make them go away, that threat is going to have half the impact that it had previously.
More to the point, like his history shows that he is generally reliant on other people to be the competent party for him, and those people are gone.
Yeah. He's a name on the door.
That's a fair point too. He's going to have a hard time finding, in the same way he's having a hard time getting lawyers, he's going to have a hard time finding anybody to fill positions in a way that they'll be able to be effective. And now that's still, they're going to do what they're told, and the 2025 plan is terrifying, but I think that's going to cause them problems too, because there is a huge bureaucracy, and the people who know how to navigate it aren't going to be around for a lot of this.
Yeah, I would expect, if they're able to go through with some of the 2025 threats, firing half of the federal workers and such, I suspect you're going to see federal government grind to a halt because A, the survivors will be overtasked, and B, because many of the more competent ones will have been pushed out. So
even in a situation,
don't know what the hell they're doing.
Even in a situation like that, most of those government workers are union. They're going to be swamped effectively in grievances.
Oh yeah.
That they won't be equipped to deal with. They
could always pull a Reagan like what he did with the air traffic controllers.
He could, but I also think that would probably end up being like fundamentally fatal to a lot of what he wants to do. And yeah, that would cause a federal gridlock. It would functionally shut down the government.
Yeah.
Oh well, and
in some ways, and then I think they may want to do that actually.
And that's great up until the point where Social Security checks don't go out, and
it doesn't and billionaires. So why does that matter?
Yes, but 5,000 elderly people with walkers marching up the Capitol, going, "We shall overcome," it is a significant issue.
Well, that's when you bring out your brown shirts of the. I played in January 6th.
But half the brown shirts just got fired.
Well, no, I think, continue.
I'm saying if he's going to, one of the things I can count on him doing in very short order is pardoning everybody who received convictions for January 6th.
Yeah,
and they will in turn become his brown shirts, his stormtroopers.
Yeah, he's going to create his own military.
Right, he's going to create a private military, and so you get Grandma and Grandpa with their walkers coming up the National Mall, and yeah, these guys are going to go in with at best nightsticks and at worst guns and take them all. That's the kind of violence I foresee in our future.
I really hope not.
Yeah, I think that's and you had said that last night, and I unfortunately very much concur, because the problem is he is a strong man. And once he pardons those people, they've already proven their loyalty. They went to jail for him. And that's not entirely true, because it's not like they were silent, and a number of them said at least that they regretted. But he's going to sit there and say, okay, he pardons all of them. They come out. The ones that are still really supportive of him, they're ride or die Trumpers, and he creates a private military. And the problem is the private military has the ability to pardon themselves for any crimes committed that this military does. So it's going to be it's going to be like Blackwater, but as if basically everybody in there were Daffy Duck.
Yeah, non-competent Blackwater.
Yeah.
Less competent Blackwater.
Okay, fair enough.
I still remember. I still remember a college ROTC instructor complaining bitterly about Blackwater for at least the whole class period.
I had to indirectly work with them, and yeah, not a good bunch of people.
That was. Yeah, I think that was really an attempt to prove that you could privatize the military in the same way that you could also privatize prisons, in the same way you could privatize basically also. Then it's just like, yeah, no,
and
you successfully proved the opposite. Yeah.
Yeah, and don't forget, one of his big supporters is Eric Prince, who's the Blackwater founder. Yeah, they've changed the name, but the organization still exists and still does the business and still is quite heavily armed.
Yes.
Oh dear Lord, what are they called now? I forget.
Executive decisions or something.
No,
that was a South African group.
Oh dear Lord! All right, well, I think we're going to.
It was renamed D Services in 2009.
Oh, Z.
𝐒𝐸, I guess.
Okay, and then I thought it would underwent another name after that, but who?
Maybe. Wow. That's more Googling than I'm willing to do right now.
Yeah, let's not not burden ourselves with the nuances of what Blackwater is currently. All right, well, I think we're going to start to wrap things up. So first of all, I would like to thank all of the mods who've been helping out. I'd like to thank everybody in the live chat, all the supporters. I would like to thank Darren Vaughn, who really was making fun of me, I think, at some point, but thank you anyway. New follower, Kakari, Firehawk, and UTV and Ham for the 5 gift memberships. Thank you so much for that. But as I said before, Carpazian has just showed up into the live chat, so I think we're going to have to bail. It's not because of you, Carpazian. I was wrapping it up when you got here, but thank you for coming. We are wrapping it up. So I'd like to start with Daedalus. Any thoughts on A, the current situation, and B, please do make sure to let people know where they can find you.
Sure. I think the only thing I really want to say is kind of what I put out to my community last night is you don't have to rise. It's going to be hard. Things are going to get rough. And you don't have to rise up to meet every challenge. But the place to start is to be proudly compassionate when you can when dealing going forward, and to be boldly empathetic when you can. Those are the kinds of things that are going to make a difference in the long run to people every day. And those are the kinds of things that are going to get us through situations like this. If you want more sappy cheeriness, you can find me at 2 Guys Talking History here on YouTube.
I like that's probably the best statement I think I've heard since this started. Commander, any thoughts as we wrap up that you would like to share on the events of the last 24 hours?
I think we've covered my thoughts in the past 24 hours, but as he said, I think we need to continue to keep pressure on elected officials. Even if you have a Republican elected official that you know probably isn't sympathetic to it, you still need to keep writing and texting and emailing, phone calling their office and telling them that certain things, whatever they are, I usually use this for Ukraine, but it extends beyond Ukraine. It's all of the things, the programs that are now under threat, and tell them those are important things to you. Because silence effectively becomes concurrence in the actions that are taken. So you need to make sure they understand you disagree with what's going on.
Thank you. And last but not least, Zandering, any final thoughts before we head out?
May you live in interesting times.
Well, I think
The old Chinese curse.
I think we're gonna. Yes, I think Zandering, you got your wish. Thanks for that. Appreciate it. Can blame you for what was the other thing we were going to blame you for? I've forgotten now. Calling the race.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, you were going to blame me for Trump winning.
Yeah,
Climate
that's
change. Let's blame him for climate change.
Ooh, I'm up for that too. So we okay.
Surging COVID rates. He's obviously behind that. You know what's in the back of that truck? It's a secret biolab.
That's one of the Ukrainian biolabs in the back of his Andrew's truck.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's Ukrainian, but you could probably make the argument that there's a biolab in the back of the truck.
Haven't cleaned it out recently, have we?
No, I've been gone for 2 months. I've been living nonstop every single day in this truck for the last 2 months.
No shit.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and thank you all for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you guys. Actually, let's see. We're gonna have a downtime. Is it tomorrow? Yeah, I think we got downtime tomorrow, and then in time on Tuesday. Yeah. Well. Yeah, we'll sort it out.
You're a cruel and heartless taskmaster.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'll raise your pay an extra 50% if that'll silence you.
So.
All right. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow night, or God forbid other breaking. But have a good one, and see you then.